January e signori, abbiamo più influenza, sui tuoi figli di te, molly amiamo creato e iniziato da New Jersey. Last week today lived presentato da Filtastic, Comics and Art.
Let's fucking go.
Hey everybody. Welcome. We are back for another episode of Last Week Today Live. Episode 120. I've got a great guest lined up for you who is waiting in the wings. But I'm just going to say our hellos and just kind of get all the, the niceties, I guess you could say. Is that a word? Out of the way. So let's see. We've got Las Cruces from New Mexico. I don't know if Las Cruces is actually here. I think he actually goes in early, says hello, and then comes out and then comes back later on. I think that's his tactic. I may have cracked the Las Cruces code. It's like the Da Vinci Code, but I guess less Italian sounding. And we have Joe from Anachronic. And Joe, I know that you're driving. Oh, Las Cruces is here. Oh, wow. See, I start being like, I don't know if he is here. And it turns out he is here. Joe is driving while he's going to his son's place in Saratoga Springs. Joe, I didn't realize you're down in Florida already. And it's, I know that you're driving, so you're not watching, which is the safe and responsible thing to do. I am wearing my Joe's channel, Anachronic Comics t-shirt. And Joe, I'm happy that you're actually listening because I have a feeling that you're really going to like this guest. Some things that I was like, you know what? This is a guy that Joe would really like. And this is a story that Joe would really like. But we're going to get to all that in a minute. I just want to say hi and welcome back, of course. We are preparing, as I always do, whenever I have an independent creator, and I just want to remind everybody, I don't have books on or creators on for projects that I don't like or whatnot. So if you have a independent creator on, this is somebody who I like and who I've read their stuff, and it's kind of like my little seal of approval, and I'm not paid to do so, just as a reminder too. I know people always question that, and I was like, no, we don't do any paid promotions, but if anybody wants to sponsor, I'm always open to it. Had a couple other people stop in here. Let's say hello. Manny the Hobgoblin Collector. Manny's got some great artwork. I know I talk about that a lot, and I can't talk about it enough, to be honest with you. Go on, take a look at some of Manny's art, and he just does it for fun, as far as I know. He's at the library, Saturday kid classes to avoid screen time for my daughter. Good idea. I was just thinking that I have to do that at some point for my son. He's going to be 3 in just a couple months. Let's see who else here. Evil's Comics is here, stopping by to say hi, but he's out shopping. Going to catch the rewind. Evil, this is a guy that I know that you're going to like. This is a book that you're going to like. And Evil, get me something nice. I was actually just thinking about Evil's Comics because we have a local store this way, not on the camera, of course, off camera, the Book Barn here in Denville, New Jersey, where but it's kind of like think of it like a thrift store, but just for books. Very popular in the area. And they were promoting some Stephen King bundles. And I was like, if I had extra cash, I'd get a nice bundle for Evil and send it his way. But then again, Evil probably has all the Stephen King books at least 2 or 3 times. And yes, I am from New Jersey, home of the drones. I think we're actually renaming ourselves to the drone state. Best I could say is if you know, you know. If not, there's always Google. We've had an issue with drones in our area. Nobody seems to know what they are. But that might be a good premise for a comic. Speaking of a good premise for a comic, you see what I did there? And yes, the coffee's flowing already. I'm going to bring in my guest now, Robert Radu, creator and writer of The Devil in Disguise. Let me get him on stage here. And hey, Robert, how are you?
Good morning. Wow, product
Good morning.
placement. I like that.
Yeah, there you go. And I have to say, I may have or may not have spelled your name wrong now that I'm looking at it on the little sign before, so I apologize for that. But how you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming in. We're definitely going to talk about the book too, and there's I think you have an interesting kind of story about how we kind of came to this point. But before we get into that, as I like to ask all creators, give us the elevator pitch. Somebody who's never heard of The Devil in Disguise, which again is the coolest logo I've seen to date.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Elevator pitch. In 1972, Elvis is given a DEA badge by President Nixon. But what if in an alternate universe there was someone very much like Elvis who took full advantage of that and was an undercover agent for the DEA?
You got me big mid sip.
Really awesome.
And just to be clear, this, even though this sounds like Elvis's story, this is not Elvis. So
Correct.
nobody sue. But it's a fun idea. And I can say I've read the first issue as part of the Kickstarter. And by the way, I do have to get the second issue, but anybody who wants to check it out, I've got a link streaming below. It's on Crowdfunder right now up until January 1st. You get issues 1 and 2. And I recommend that you do. It's just such a fun concept and idea. And I personally love kind of alternate history. But how did you get to this place? Where did this idea come from, or this interest come from?
Let's see. My first 3 records when I was, I think, 11 was Kiss Rock and Roll Over, The Beatles Yesterday and Today, and Elvis Greatest Hits Volume 3. So I've always listened to Elvis.
And I remember... sorry, go ahead.
To the Beatles anymore.
I remember...
Oh,
no, I'm sorry. I keep... I apologize. It's my coffee acting in. Go right ahead.
About 25 years ago, I had the idea for a humor strip. And Elvis walks into a drug dealer's office with a big cape, pompadour, gold chains, sunglasses, everything. And he goes, "I want to buy all your drugs." The guy goes, "Hey, great." Elvis lays down a couple of sacks of money on the desk. Dealer lays down a couple of sacks of whatever. And Elvis whips off the sunglasses and goes, "This is a bust." The guy goes, "Oh my God, it's Elvis." As if the sunglasses were the disguise.
It's kind of like an old, like a Zorro mask. Like you can't tell who it is. He's got this little mask on.
It's the Clark Kent syndrome.
There you go.
So I thought I'll bring that back, and I didn't see a way to do that as a series. So I turned it upside down, and I took a look at it seriously, and looked at addiction and fame and everything that costs. Did a lot of research on how the government has treated addiction over the last 50 years, starting with punishment and finally ending with treatment and compassion. And I throw in a lot of martial arts and romance and hopefully humor.
Yeah, the stuff good stories are made of. Well, I mean, look, martial arts works hand in hand with Elvis. I remember, wasn't he a karate, or he told people he was into karate?
Well, he learned it in the military, and then he continued private lessons in his, after he left the army. He did achieve a black belt.
I see. I always thought that was kind of like a joke thing, but I didn't realize he actually did do that.
Yeah, it's part of U.S. training.
Now, I keep referring back to, this was part of the Kickstarter. I guess this was kind of like, was this part of like a little preview booklet? The ash can, yes. Yeah. I wanted to show this off because you have a great artist in this too. I know that he's no longer with the series, but I just wanted to show it off because it's a different style, especially from what we've been seeing lately. It's more of a traditional style, and I think it really, really works well with the story. In particular, let me pull out actually my issue here. In particular, the scenes where you're showing the concerts and everything. First of all, I could tell that you're a music fan. It's got that feel to it. It's just got that vibrance, and the art definitely supports it in that side. Now this is one of the variants. This is, I think, the Fernando Ruiz variant, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Fernando worked for Archie for over 20 years. He's still an instructor over at the Kubert School in New Jersey.
Yep. Yes, we're going to get to Kubert actually in a minute too. But yeah, I just want to give everybody just gorgeous, gorgeous page here. I can't even imagine the original art on this one in particular. Hopefully I showed it well. I don't know. I can't really see with my phone, but just well done. Actually, you know what? I think this is a little bit. Oh no, I thought this actually had some more stuff in it than I looked at, but I could be wrong. Yeah, because you know what? Oh, there's a sneak preview in the back. That's why I was of something else. That's why I was a little thrown off. Never mind. But yeah, this is one of the variants that's available. Again, I have the link below here, and this is issue 1. Now, reading your bio a little bit, first I have to say, following the Kickstarter, I appreciated it. I felt like it was a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like almost like a grass movement kind of promotion that you did. I have on my iPad here, you had a couple emails, which I was like, somebody's sending email newsletters. You don't see it around that often, but it was great and it was refreshing. And I felt like it really kind of fit the whole tone of the project overall. So I just wanted to compliment you on that one. But, you know, I think it's just so important, too, when you have a project like this where you're relying on crowdfunding. You know, tell me if I'm wrong. This is right now the only way you can get this. You can't go in stores or anything like that.
If you live in the city of Buffalo, yes, you can, but that's it.
Yeah. So, and if you are an LCS owner, by the way, and you do want to carry the Devil in Disguise, reach out to Robert. You know, it's a great book. Like I said, it's very unique. I'm still, I don't know why I love that logo. I'll be honest with you. It has a very, the logo itself has a very like a Tarantino cinematic feel, but the book itself is not, or from what I've read at least, it's not like that at all. But it's a cool design. Very cool.
Yeah, Chris worked on that together.
Yeah, and I was reading, of course, both your bios and everything. Where I know that Chris has been traveling around. Where's he going? Or where's he now? Where's he going next?
So this is the segment of the interview I like to call "Where in the World is Chris Zamora?" And actually, I'm not sure.
Yeah, because he was in Armenia. I'm familiar. My wife is Armenian, so I'm very dialed into what's happening there. So, you know, if you don't know, because it wasn't as publicized, big problems in Armenia, big war and whatnot. And he moved from there and decided, hey, where am I going to go to escape the war? Let's go to the Ukraine. Right before things went there. So hopefully he's safe. And look, it's kind of amazing. What's that?
The story is when I met him, he was in Romania and the Ukraine war had already started. And his partner's from the Ukraine. He's from Uruguay. They were waiting for the war to die down so they can go back to Ukraine. And you know, the war is still going.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So they were there for about a year, and then they went back to Uruguay, and they're traveling through South America now. And from there, I don't know.
I don't think any of us do.
I don't think they're sure yet. There's places they want to go, but he's lived all over Europe. It's enviable. It's enviable.
Yeah, I was just like, all right, this guy is pretty much the Carmen Sandiego of artists, traveling all around in the middle of these war zones, and it seems like war follows him. I don't know. I know that you said he was waiting until things died down, but he had time to draw this, and I'm like, I get home from work and I'm too tired. Like, what's going on here?
It's unbelievable. He can work on planes. He can work on trains. You know, nothing stops him.
Now, I found your story to be interesting. Now, you were you are, excuse me, a songwriter yourself.
Yeah.
So did that help the material, or was that just always like I can incorporate it into it, or why don't we say this? How do you think that helped the story?
Well, I had a band together for about 20 years called the Murder Mountain Boys, and we did.
That's an awesome name.
Thank you. there's going to be a comic series based on the Murder Mountain stories. So. And it was mostly story songs, a lot of murder ballads. So I was able to tell in a real concise 2 to 3 minute time frame story, beginning, middle, end. So that helps me. That helps me as a storyteller. As far as the music, there's little drops and throughout the series, lyrics from our songs, and
yeah.
And, it certainly gives me a background in what goes on, behind stage.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you too. I can't speak to the lyrics, but I could tell you it has. Maybe it was just me, just because I hear "Devil in Disguise" and pretty much like everybody probably does. I get a little bit of the song in my head. The storytelling itself, I don't know. There's a little bit of a pace to it. I almost feel like this is going to sound crazy. I almost feel like there's music in the background as I'm reading it. I can assure you, what's that?
There is a soundtrack on Spotify.
Well, now I have to look it up. And unfortunately, if we did this last week, we could have got it for Spotify Day or whatever happened earlier this week.
You can find the link to the soundtrack on our Facebook page.
Look up "Devil in Disguise" on Facebook, and Robert does a good job, I have to say, or whoever does it updates it pretty regularly too. So it's not like you're part of this group that you just kind of falls off. You'll get your updates and then some. But I think that is that, I guess, the best way to dial in to see exactly what's going on with Devil in Disguise.
It's the most comprehensive way to look at it. It's the Devil in Disguise GN for graphic novel on Facebook. Otherwise, you punch in Devil in Disguise, there's like 20 Elvis websites that come up.
I'll say this though: if you type in Google, look, go to Facebook, because he just said that's the best way to do it. But if you type in Devil in Disguise comic, you're up there. You're busy. I could see you did a lot of promotion, and that's great to see too. It shows you have a good passion behind this project. I feel a lot of people, which always kind of throws me off, creators kind of put it out there and then they kind of like peter off at some point. But I feel like you've been going strong with it.
It's a daily task. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to bring up too, you mentioned you've had the story in the back of your head and your archives, where have you, for 20 years. So this isn't like a passing thing. This is something you had, and maybe for whatever reason, 20 years ago, the story wasn't ready or just wasn't all there, but you ran with it. And I think that's a good thing to show to people who maybe they have a piece of a story in their head. Maybe they have an idea of an idea, but it's always good to come back to these things.
I keep files of everything I've ever thought of. Periodically, I go through like, now I know how to do this. Like now I couldn't
do that because
how to approach it.
I couldn't keep files of everything because I know my wife would go crazy. Number one, but I'll say plausible deniability. Like I didn't think anything like that now. But in all seriousness, and Robert's got a great story too. You were a student at Joe Kubert a while back. As you're an artist, I can tell you've got the table in the back. And you tell it.
When I got out of high school, I went right to the Joe Kubert School. And that was going to be my profession, not a plumber, not a minister. I was going to be a comic book artist. And, excuse me, when I went to the school, surrounded by all the talent there, I honestly got really intimidated. And at the time, this is last century. I know I look like I'm 21, but this was a while ago.
If I squint, I can see it.
Actually, I turned 22 yesterday.
Happy birthday.
So I left my first year. I couldn't see myself making a living at it because as far as illustrating, if I'm good, that's a judgment call, but I am agonizingly slow. So, but I think half of the graduates ended up working at the time for Hallmark. They moved out to Missouri to work in the Hallmark factory, just doing cards. So like, I didn't want to do that. Nothing against Missouri. So I left, and I kind of gave up on art, but I continued with the writing. I wrote 98% of our material for the band. And, always been creative. But then during COVID, work shut down, nothing to do. So I kind of got the tick back to start drawing. Looked up the Cooper School. Hey, they're doing online classes now. Fantastic. So I went back virtually, part-time. And it took a while, but the chops are back.
That's good. And that's how we kind of virtually met. Actually, Robert and I were in a class that Dan DiDio was teaching on pitching. And I remember I was excited when I got your email because I remembered your pitch was different than this one, but it was like, that sounds really cool. I want to read that. And I hadn't heard from really anybody else who was in the class. But there's one other person I know of who actually created work, as a result of taking these classes. I mean, he probably had it in his brain for a while. But Doug Bratton, who lives actually in the next town over here with Isolation. So, hey, look, if you're interested in writing or drawing or any of the classes that they offer, Joe Kubert, I think they're still doing online classes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, hey, look, you get a class with Dan DiDio. I think we're allowed to say Frank Miller was a special guest at one of our classes. So definitely worth checking out. But, I was always just kind of impressed with the fact that art by nature, even though it shouldn't be, feels competitive. And I think that's just our kind of human nature. I was the same way in art school. I went to art school, I got there, and it was like, everybody is great. How the hell did I get in here? Is this a fluke? And I stuck with it. I wound up transferring out of the art program, but graduated. And even now, too, I put down drawing for a while. I came back to it right before COVID. And now it's just part of my semi-daily stuff. I had a shoulder issue, and it acts up if I'm drawing too much. And I have to say, you put your stuff out online, you go on Instagram or whatever, and it almost immediately it's like that same, holy crap, how did somebody do that? But I think it goes to show that, number one, in art, you have to keep it up. And I'm glad that you came back to it, because while it is muscle memory, I do think that if you don't feed it, just like a plant, it's going to wither over time.
Yeah. I haven't picked up my guitar in 10 years.
So
it's gonna be a rough couple of weeks when I pick it up again.
Have you gotten the urge to say, let me see if I could draw and write and play guitar like all in 1 week?
Oh, in 1 week?
Yeah, like let me just try to do everything.
Not at the same time, but yeah, in 1 week I could do that.
If you could do it at the same time, that would be impressive. So now you've got the first 2 issues of Devil in Disguise done. And I know that I'm looking at the letter that you sent with the Kickstarter. Issue 3 is nearly complete and awaiting the variant cover. And you hope to conclude the series with issue 4, which may turn out to be an oversized issue. How far off are we from issue 3 coming out?
The first 22 pages are done. And they're in progress. It might end up being a 30 or a 40 pager. The nice thing about self-publishing is I'm not stuck with the constraints of the publisher telling me it's got to be 20 pages. So when I find a natural end to a chapter, that's where it ends. Um, but I don't want to do I don't want to do 5 issues on Kickstarter. I'd rather do 4. The support's great, but honestly, the back end of it is is exhausting. So if I could do 4 instead of 5,
Yeah, and
that. Um,
that's something I want to interrupt you for a second. I was impressed with this because I say it was on Kickstarter, then it was something else, and as crowdfunder. Like, one thing I've seen is that the successful independent creators are not one who's just like, "Oh, I'm going to try Kickstarter," and then that's it. They're like, "Let me try 1 or 2," and then they get into this kind of a groove with it. There are people who are very good at Kickstarter and could just support their projects with 1, and that's great. But in my opinion, it's the people who hustle from one to the other that are able to really be successful at it. And I'm like, wow, he's doing this. He's at this.
yeah, it's wish there was somebody I could pay to do this.
There probably is, but they probably want too much.
I enjoy it, but it is it's time consuming, and sometimes it takes time away from me actually writing. I would say that's, for me, that's the drawback. Yeah. But I when I'm doing it, I love it. I love doing the updates, the newsletters, kind of talking one-sided with people through the Facebook thing. And I don't know if anybody sees it, you know.
Yeah, and look,
I'm grateful for your feedback, because this is the first interview I've done where someone's actually read it.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, they missed out. I don't know how to explain
the interviews, but you know, as I'm doing promotions, they'd like, "Oh, okay, well, it looked good. Tell us about it." But this is a nice opportunity to someone who's already read it. And
well, you know, that's kind of my own thing too. Is that I don't know if you heard me at the beginning of the show. I only like to bring on projects that I like, because I don't want to sit here and be like, I'm trying to sell you something that I wouldn't get myself. And I mean, look, when I say I like, I'll be honest with you, I paint with a very broad brush in that there's only been one independent project that was brought to me that I was like, pass. And, you know, it was nicer about it. But I'll say this one thing I find I think it's I think independent creators are refreshing, not only because you're seeing ideas that you're just not going to see from the big 2, at least. Maybe Image, but it'll still be a little kind of corporate, in my opinion. But you're seeing people light up with passion. You know, look, it's easy to say, hey, I want to write Spider-Man, I want to write Batman. You know, okay, you could put a little bit of yourself into it. No matter what you do, in 6 months after you're gone, it's going to be forgotten. But this is something, and this is a perfect example that has been born and kind of, what do we say, like fermented and matured, and is now finally on paper. And you could really tell somebody's passion when you flip through these pages. And that's one thing that I really like about this, that I can tell you're a fan of what you're writing about. You're not just here like, all right, this is kind of what I want to do.
Nothing that I've done is designed to sell. I'm not catering to anybody other than myself. And I got to say, one of the biggest influences for me over the last many years is the comic Love and Rockets. It's still going on. I read it when it first came out. I've been buying it ever since. And I can't imagine the pitch. Like, okay, well, we're 2 Chicano brothers in LA, and we want to do a comic book. Okay, great. So it's just a regular comic? Oh, no, we want it magazine size. Okay. Yeah. And in black and white. Ooh, black and white. Okay, it's got superheroes, right? No, it's about punk rock and lesbians and South American Village. Oh, Okay, well, who were the main guys in it? Oh no, it's mostly women. How is this going to sell?
But yeah, you said black and white. I want to bring up something too.
And there it is.
I really enjoy black and white books. Like in this case, I think it especially works for you because, again, when I'm looking at it, I never watched Elvis on TV. He was, I think he was gone by the time I was born. But I guess kind of get that almost celluloid feeling looking at, I don't know, maybe that's just how I imagine it when I'm reading it. Like you get that kind of old black and white kind of feel like you're watching a film or a replay feeling from it. And it works great for this book in particular. Just don't try to colorize it.
There's a couple of reasons I wanted to do it in black and white. Like the perspective you just got from it. I find that when I pick up a book and it's in black and white, my two thoughts are immediately either it's a horror book or it's of a more mature tone, which this one is. It's not for mature readers, but it's for a matured reader.
I like that. You need to trademark that.
Trying to make that our Nectar Comics banner for a matured audience. We have two current series on Nectar, and they're both they're family friendly, but it's not geared towards preteens. Nor is it filled with,
I understand. They could read it, but they might not get pulled into it like somebody from a more mature perspective would.
Yeah.
There we go. See, I spun it for you.
Just the prevalence of addiction that runs through the whole series. Maybe not for kids.
Yeah. But I'll say this too, and it's a topic that, although the bigger companies have touched on it before, it's of course nothing as, I don't want to say in depth, but not handled with, I think, the same degree of care. Like whenever I hear of like an addiction-based story, I think everybody goes back to Green Arrow and whatnot.
Speedy. But the drug addict was Speedy.
Yes. Oh, there. I never thought about that actually. It's not. It doesn't feel like a PSA. It feels like a well thought out and composed story because it is.
Thank you.
Welcome. Let me see. What was you said that you have two projects with Nectar. What's the other one that you're working on?
Well, it's not my project. Gentleman is Stephen Cullis, who also took the Kubert online classes and is producing these books because of it. He has one called Call of the Totem, and you can find info on both of our books at nectarcomics.com.
Is that the preview that's in the back of issue 1?
It is.
It is, okay. Because I read the issue online, and it didn't include the preview. So when I just flipped through it, I was like, I don't remember that happening. It seems out of place, but that's why. But again, I can tell you too, if you want your copies of The Devil in Disguise, I've got the link below. I've mentioned it before, but these are the type of stories that I think, me personally, we need to hear more of and see more of. And the only way you could do that is by supporting these people. And again, I'm not getting any money or anything for this, at least that I know of. If you want to send something, I'm not opposed to it, Robert. But go right ahead. Look, go at the bottom. Get this. Support good comics. Manny threw me off for a second because I thought he was saying hello to Elvis, but it's Evils. So Evils comics means that you have to buy it now. There you go. But you guys are making me feel lazy. I have to do a Joe Kubert project, I guess, or a project.
Actually, none of the guys we took classes with have been producing their own books. And a good chunk of it is thanks to Dan DiDio's class.
Yeah,
so that was a fantastic class.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Kids, all you kids out there, if you're trying to get your foothold on how to do this, definitely go to the Joe Kubert School website and check out their classes. There's script writing classes, penciling, inking. I took the inking class twice because it was just so darn good. And the caliber of instructors is pretty high.
Yeah, I mean, I took a writing class with Amy Chu, great writer,
So
and
did
I
I.
took Dan DiDio's class. Yeah, I would take more classes, but my wife has had 2 children since then, so yeah, I was like, okay, I can't take any more classes unless I do something with what I've learned. That's just my thing. I need to be able to support things. I don't want to be a professional student, I guess. I need to go places with it, like you have, and the other gentleman, and then like Dave. Wellbore, thank you for putting that up. He just put up the link for Nectar's comics as well. Nectar Comics. There you go. It's like Field of Dreams. You know, mention it and help. So you've said that I know that you have a wealth of stories that you're ready to that have been formulating, fermenting.
Yeah.
What do you have an idea for your? You don't have to say what it is, but do you have an idea for your next project after this is done?
I am working on a story about a teenage kid who is bitten by a no. I have one like quick one shot I'd like to do. I wrote again another project that's not designed to appeal to everybody. A 1960s romance comic anthology.
But you know what? You're getting into that niche either way.
I figured that would be a logical next step to this one since this is set in the 50s and 60s. And it's kind of kitschy. But that's just, I batted out the script in a couple of days and I have a couple of artists in mind.
Now, let me ask you, because you've said before, hey, I didn't write anything to sell, which I think is a perfect thing. I'm going to start using that whenever I draw or write something, just to say, hey, so my wife asked if anybody bought anything. It's like, no, but I didn't make it to sell. So that if anything does sell, I'm a resounding success from it. I like that idea. I'm stealing it.
That's a nice door.
There you go.
I don't want anybody to buy this. Come on.
Yeah. I promote it like, hey, don't buy this. It's really good. Don't buy it. And then you can just get some rebels like, I'm going to buy it because he said not to.
Well, I think it goes back to why I left the Kubert School, was that I couldn't see myself doing this professionally, making a living at it. And, now decades later, I don't have to make a living at this. So all that pressure is off my shoulders, and I find that when there's no pressure, I'm more creative and I'm freer, and I don't overthink things. Maybe I should. I don't know. I should think about it.
Well played.
But I'm also a horrendous procrastinator, so I'll put that thought off till later.
That sounds good. I can tell you too, because I had that thought. I'm sure I'm convinced anybody who picks up a comic and is a regular collector has that thought at some point, like, gee, maybe one day I could draw a comic or I could write a comic or whatever. But I could tell you too, I guarantee you, a lot of those people that you went to school with who worked at Hallmark and whatnot, comic work is work regardless too. It's not something sustaining. I'm kind of lucky at my LCS, which I haven't been to in a while, admittingly. There are a good influx of artists who, look, it's not anybody who's knocking down the doors or whatever, but these are good kind of journeyman artists, and they'll be the first ones to tell you, like, hey, it's a struggle. If you've been and some of these guys have been in the industry 20, 30 years at this point, and it's a grind. You think of artists like, oh, I could be like Jim Lee. It's like, there's really only one Jim Lee. So I mean, there's that too. Dope, who, by the way, I feel like you and Dope Comics would get along really well. Dope is great for pre-code horror, but he likes that kind of classical kind of stuff. Also, some older Hulk stuff. He has a good suggestion here. He needs a good 50s alien invasion story. Well, Dope, I'm going to tell you, this isn't, without giving any spoilers, I don't believe there's any aliens in this. I could be wrong. But this is a great story in the 50s nonetheless.
Can I plug someone else's project based on that little?
Go right ahead.
There's a comic called Drive-In Kings of 1977. It's also on Kickstarter. And that combines, it's set in the 70s, but it combines all the great 50s and 60s B movies, Elvis movies, aliens, robots. It's a great series, and I think that might be up that alley there.
Now you have to let the creator of that series know that you plug them on here, so that when they do an interview for their book, they can plug you.
He's a fan of mine too.
Well, there you go.
And it's one I've read and I've enjoyed, and I can't wait for the next issue. I'm the same as you. I'm not gonna drop a name just cause.
Yeah. You got me thinking that too, because you mentioned all the old like B movies from the 70s and whatnot. And of course Elvis was in some of those. The limited knowledge of Elvis.
Hey. Those were A-list movies.
Oh, look, hey, I will say this. The best movies about helicopter drive pilots who are going to a clam bake I've ever seen.
I have to defend Elvis here, which I don't often do, because people get tired of it. His first 3 movies are unbelievably good before he went into the Army. Jailhouse Rock, he's in prison. Great. I'm drawing a blank. Oh, King Creole. Fantastic movie. Anything after he gets out of the Army is not watchable at all. Not watchable.
But I'll say this. I used to be involved with the Elks, which a lot of people here have known me talk about it. No longer, but one thing I was surprised at, I never understood why people in a little bit older generation than me had this fascination. Oh, we're going to do a clam bake. It's going to be great. And I was like, I don't know what that is. And then years later, I saw this like, okay, I kind of get it. They're recapturing this because it looks like just the clam bake, like the whole song kind of little sequence. It looks like a fun time. I could tell there's probably, and I'll say this, there's a difference between Elvis's clam bake and a clam bake in northern New Jersey in the yard of an Elks Lodge. But nonetheless, they enjoyed it, so I'm not going to rain on anybody's day there.
I had to hit mute. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
If you like clam bake, then you got to search out the clip from one of his movies for a song called "Do the Clam."
I'm trying to think.
It is a glorious train wreck. It's supposed to be like the next dance craze. Do the Clam. I can't think of anything more inactive than a clam.
Once Hollywood figures it out, though, they'll do a remake, and it'll be like Channing Tatum in clam bake.
Yeah, nobody's remade an Elvis movie.
Not yet.
We need a reboot of Spin Out, maybe.
Maybe. I'm sure that they'll figure out a way to make it work until it doesn't work, just so they get something out of it. But I'll say this too.
In the humor vein of all this, it's in issue 2. I think it's in issue 2. Might be in issue 3. where we go into his film career.
Mhm.
And Elvis is known for all those Hawaii movies, the beach movies. I turned that upside down, and he is in this litany of terrible ski movies. So that's a little inside joke there.
I'm looking forward to seeing that one.
People love seeing girls in tight sweaters. That's
And I'll say this too, like we're saying, hey, Elvis had 3 good movies, and then everything after that maybe not so great. Hey, Kate Hudson, her first movie was Almost Famous, and then after that it's been just stuff my wife wants to watch. You know, the rom-coms, mostly with McConaughey. But there you go. There's the paradigm.
Well, they take John Candy, one of the funniest men ever. Most of his movies are unwatchable.
But those ones that are watchable are home runs.
Same with Steve Martin.
True.
He's made a ton of terrible movies. Well, not terrible, but not great movies for all of his potential. But you forget those. You remember The Jerk, you know. You remember Bowfinger, you know. You don't remember all those terrible remakes. Father of the Bride 3. And,
I didn't know they had a third one.
I think there was a third one, yeah.
Wait, I'm trying to think, because
his granddaughter gets married.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was, I was going to say it's got to either do with pets or babies, but I guess they're like, yeah, we'll go with grandparents. Because I feel like I used to go to a lot of comedy clubs, and there was a comedian who commented when Steve Martin was remaking the Pink Panther movies.
Oh.
And he like railed after him to the point where I think Steve Martin happened to be at the XM Sirius Studios, whatever it was at that time, like not too far after. And Steve Martin said, "Hold on a second, I know you." And he confronted him. He was like, "How could you say?" And it kind of changed. He was like, "Look, what can you do?" That whole thing. And then I think there was a whole thing in like the second movie they were talking about. I didn't see the second one. I didn't know that they made one. He kept pushing, hey, you know, we should do a wedding because people like weddings in movies. I've done enough of them. It's like, no, not really.
There's a terrible one with Alan Arkin called Inspector Clouseau. They couldn't get Peter Sellers to do it.
Oh.
It came out in the late 60s. Also unwatchable. It has to be Peter Sellers.
You know what it is? They had James Bond do it successfully, Superman and Batman. Nobody else they could really get going on it, I guess.
Yeah.
We've been talking a while about The Devil in Disguise. We've been talking about a lot of things, I'll be honest with you. We meander. That's just kind of what I do. But again, if you want to get your copies, I've got the crawler at the bottom of the screen. Whether you're seeing this live or later on recorded in some other place, go ahead and check that out. That link is the best place to get this up until January 1st. And I highly recommend that you do. It's a different story. It's fun. It's enjoyable. And it's something that I think a lot of people who popped in today, and thinking of just a lot of people in the little YouTube community, at least that I know of, are really going to be, you know, if you go for this, it's really a rare treat. You know, I said Joe earlier, I think Dope would really like it as well. Evil's just because Evil likes a little bit of everything. I could see Rob Fatstacks liking this a lot as well too, but I'm just guessing at this point.
Are there any questions from the audience?
Let's see, because we don't have a huge live audience right now. And again, if you're on YouTube, you can of course comment. If you're on some other platform, you could ask questions, but I'm not going to see them until much later. So do we have any questions here for Robert? And he'll answer questions about his book. Or look, if there's any other questions, maybe he might surprise us with something here.
Life advice?
There you go. Let's see here. Let me ask you, what was the process of how did you come to get Zamora on your artwork?
Oh, yeah, the artists, right. So I was on one of them there, what do you call that? The Facebook. Yeah, I was on the Facebook. And I was on one of those sites. It's either called Connecting Comic Book Writers and Artists or Connecting Writers and Artists and Writers. There's like 4 different websites with a similar name. So that, looking for an artist, blah, 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 blah. No, not even. No, I saw his post first. It was, I'm an artist. I've got about the next 6 weeks with no work. So please contact me. Here's a sample of my work. And I saw it like 12 seconds after he posted it. The timing was perfect. It was like 2 a.m. for me. And I was the first one to respond. We chatted right away. He's like, "That's it. I'm taking the post down." we clicked. So he did the first 2 issues. He's doing the first chunk of issue 3. But kind of like we were talking about earlier, there's a point where you do this for 20 years or so, and he needs to concentrate on his own stuff. So he's got his own.
Show off some more of it too here.
Thank you. He's got his own creative projects that he wants to finally pay attention to, and I applaud him for that. And I'm looking forward to see what he does.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great. His renditions are great, and it most importantly though, it serves your story so well that it's a shock that you guys weren't like shoulder and shoulder planning these things.
Well, I did the because of my background, I did all the page layouts, and my scripts are very detailed, camera angles, perspective, etc., etc. And he liked that I did the breakdowns. He didn't necessarily follow them because he has his own instincts. But yeah, as far as the art goes, we're hand in hand. You know, and I'm also art editor, so like, I may have to point out that, you know, because he's from Uruguay and he's a bit younger than me. That hairstyle is a 1964 hairstyle, not a 1958 hairstyle. So then I sent him a photo references. And he's quick to right and make the changes.
But even look at those details on the car too.
No, I told him exactly what car to do.
I mean, he did great with it.
Yeah.
You know, there was a scene here I wanted to ask you about. I'm trying to find it where I think he takes the
Is it dancing chicken?
Oh, something where it might have been early on. I'm trying to find it. With there's older movie posters in the back.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
Did
when he
you-
signed his movie deal.
Did you have any issues with, I guess, either reproducing those or did you have to get any kind of special rights or permission, or I don't know, how does that work exactly?
I'm sure I don't know what you are talking about.
I don't know either. I'm just you know what? I might be thinking about a totally different book. Totally different. I clearly can't find it. So it might, you know what? I blame the coffee for taking over. That's what happens. See, about 5 minutes before I go on, I drink an entire cup of coffee. And it really just, of course, we go into hyperactive mode and I see things in books that aren't there.
I'm about finished with my first pot. So Chris has had to step away, and we have a new artist. So Chris goes by the name Krizam, and so our new artist goes by Katie, and she's a German illustrator, and she's on the opposite end. She's a gifted illustrator, but has been waiting for a project that she's interested in. But she also long distance took one of the Kubert classes, and when she presented her work, they said, "You got to take this right over to DC Comics right now, and they'll give you a book." She's like, "I don't want to work for DC." Who says that? So I'm proud to say that this is going to be her first published work.
I'm looking forward to that then. Just the integrity, I guess you could say, with that too. I was going to say I half expected you to say that she wants to go by Kazam, just to keep up with the Zam here. I have to ask you because I know Comics Fan is not in the United States. Do you ship internationally?
Yes.
Comics Fan, Devil in Disguise. Look at the crawler below. Order the book. Go back and watch the replay of this because we've talked a lot about it. But I think this is another one that may be right up your alley.
So if you don't see your particular country on the shipping list, then just email me and I will tell you how much the shipping is, and I'll add that to the menu.
And do you do digitally as well?
On Crowdfunder, no.
Okay. Well, you get at least the physical, and then figure out whatever the shipping is. It's well worth it. I'm going to say that much.
Thank you.
But you're welcome.
Now, for those that are shipped internationally, what I've done is to kind of make up a little bit of the bite on that cost. I pack an extra copy.
Makes sense.
Or they can either pass it on to a friend or, you know.
That's pretty smart. You could grow a huge international following.
I put out on Facebook early on in issue 1 if there was any interest in me doing a Spanish language edition of it, but it wasn't enough feedback.
Well, maybe now that this is out, like I said, the word's going to spread. Again, I can't say enough good things about it.
I'm picking up a lot of fans from non-comic people.
Really?
Because of the rockabilly angle. So I'm getting some music fans in there that generally don't read comics. So that's too.
It's funny because I just spoke 2 weeks ago with the gentleman from Signation Comics about their comic, and they came from a perspective of, hey, we were going to make a film, but we decided we want to make it as a comic because it's an easier handle budget. And they're primarily musicians. One of the brothers is musicians. And we actually get a lot of comics that we sell at our shows. So it's just kind of a weird, I guess, kind of crossover. Like, I guess they cross on the Venn diagram of comics and music. And it's interesting that you see it from here too. Now that I think about it too, the owner of my LCS is also a musician. And it seems like it's a natural kind of blend with each other.
Yeah, if you're out there marketing your comic, try to think outside of the comic audience.
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly not a superhero tale, but hey, that's fun. Look, the great thing about comics is that no matter what type of story you like, there it is. And this is definitely something, if you're into rockabilly, if you're into music, if you're into, I don't want to say action, but if you're into those little bit of those kind of stories here, you've got everything in here.
And there's romance.
And romance, yes.
Issue number two really delves into that as well.
See, I didn't get to that one yet. That's why I didn't have that.
And then later on, in issue 2, we start seeing the involvement of organized crime or the mob.
Yeah, you talk a little bit about that on the top of the ash cannon. This was well produced too, by the way. I find independent comics as well have generally a better production value than anything from the big two. But this one I was really kind of impressed with as well. I'm going to come in for a landing. I've almost been bothering you for about an hour now. But again, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. Check out this project. Info is scrolling at the bottom. Robert, parting words. Just anything that you want to let anybody know about this project or anything else you might be working on.
I want to thank everybody that supported it so far, especially you, Phil.
Thank you.
It's been a blast doing this. If you want to learn a little more about an Elvis type guy and what fame does to somebody. If you are suffering through addiction or know someone who is, this is a good book. It treats it with compassion and understanding. If you like, can I say ass? If you like
Sure.
kick-ass action, this might be for you. If you like 50s stuff, 60s stuff, this is for you. If you like black and white comics, this is for you. Got everything except, X-ray vision and flying.
That's all for issue 4.
Well,
Spoilers.
issue 4, he does put on a cape, but he doesn't fly.
Well, Last Christmas, if you like Elvis. Again, this is not Elvis, just to make that 100% clear. Check this out. I think it's definitely a treat. But Robert, thank you again for spending some time with me here. I am jumping on issue 2 after the holidays, and I look forward to the next issue as well once it's ready.
Yeah, I'm waiting until the holidays to release issue 3. I want to get past that. I'm paying off my credit cards. Look for issue 3 probably in February.
Smart move. I've had a couple of Kickstarters that come my way, and I was like, I really want to do this, but not yet. Give me some time. But everybody else, I want to thank everyone for checking us out. Go ahead and support Robert. Again, everything's scrolling at the bottom here too. And I don't know if I'm going to have another show in 2 weeks or not, because we're getting closer to Christmas. You know where to find me if you need to find me. But again, Devil in Disguise, Facebook, Crowdfunder, Nectar Comics. Check it out. And I guess I'll leave everybody like I always do. Peace, love, and comics. Take care.